oturum zamanı diyoruz ve ilk oturumu başlatalım. Akademi ve Sürdürülebilirlik ilk oturumun moderatörünü öncelikle sahneye davet etmek istiyorum. Sevgili Profesör Doktor Hocam Bülent Özipek, İstanbul Teknik Üniversitesi öğretim görevlisi. Hocam hoş geldiniz, buyurun.
Diyorum. Teşekkür ederim.
İki video konferansla katılımcı olacak bu oturumda. Hemen kendilerini de selamlayalım. Dirk, VANTYGHEM, Ekoteks Genel Direktörü, Belçika'dan katılıyor kendisi bu oturuma. Avrupa Birliği Yeni Tekstil Stratejisi mesajı. Ve Sayın Doçent Sean Cormer, Tekstil ve Moda Enstitüsü Tekstil Geliştirme ve Pazarlama Bölümü öğretim üyesi. Amerika Birleşik Devletleri'nden yine video konferansla bu oturuma kendisi katılacak. Ve Profesör Doktor Seval SÖZEN, İstanbul Teknik Üniversitesi Çevre Mühendisliği Bölümü öğretim üyesi. Tekstil Endüstrisinde Çevresel Ayak İzlerinin Anatomisi diyecek. Kendisini de sahneye davet etmek istiyorum. Hoş geldiniz. Günaydın. Oturumu başlatabiliriz ama öncesinde bir küçük hatırlatma yapmak isterim. Sizler de eğer soru sormak, buraya dahil olmak, çok özür dilerim, size de arkamı döndüm. Katılmak isterseniz sorularınızı almak istiyoruz fakat zamanımız biraz kısıtlı. Eğer yazılı olarak salondaki görevli arkadaşlara iletirseniz muhakkak size geri dönüş yapılacak. Ya da dışarıda, molalarda yine aynı şekilde sorularınızı alabiliriz ilgili kişilere. Çok çok teşekkür ediyorum. Kolaylıklar diliyorum.
Çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Efendim, günün heyecanı ve hareketliliği nedeniyle bir konuşmacımız da aramızda misafirimiz var. Profesör Doktor Javier SARDINA. Ben onu da sahneye davet ediyorum. Would you like to come along, please? Evet, bu arada Profesör SARDINA bu toplantımızın, bu sempozyumumuzun keynote yani ana konuşmacısı. Bugün kendisi sahip olduğu geniş deneyimini bize aktaracak. Efendim öncelikle 13.'sünü düzenlediğimiz Uluslararası Ekoteks Sempozyumuna tekrar hoş geldiniz diyorum ve ilk oturumu açıyorum. Akademi ve Sürdürülebilirlik oturumunu bugün gerçekleştireceğiz. Biraz önce belirttiğimiz gibi iki konuşmacımız online bize dahil olacaklar. Ben bu geleneksel sempozyumumuzu bu defa da başarıyla düzenleyen Ekoteks'in Yönetim Kurulu Başkanı Sayın Nilgün Özdemir başta olmak üzere tüm katkıda bulunan Ekoteks ailesine, İHKİP Yönetim Kurulu Başkanımız, tim başkanımız ve tüm İhracatçılar Meclisi ve başkanlıklarının sahip olduğu tüm teknik personelin katkısı için çok çok teşekkür ediyorum. Efendim 13. bu 13. Uluslararası Tekstil Ekoteks Sempozyumu iz bırakacak. 13 olduğu için değil, içeriği açısından olduğu için. Biraz önce değerli tim başkanımızın da altını çok güzel çizdiği eylem planları dahilinde derhal harekete geçiliyor ve bundan sonraki aşamalarda bu liderlerimizin bize gösterdiği çizgi üzerinden önemli bir aşama daha gerçekleşmiş olacak. Konuşmacılarımıza geçerken Profesör Javier SARDINA, Santiago de Compostela Üniversitesi'nin Organik Kimya Bölümünden kendisi çok deneyimli bir kimya profesörümüz ve geçmiş sempozyumlarımızda da büyük ihtimalle katılanlar hatırlayacaklardır. Yine bu sempozyumumuzda günün mesajını verecek olan konuşmacımız olarak konuşma başlığı Sürdürülebilir moda, eksik olan nedir? Evet, sürdürülebilirlik ve dijitalleşme çok konuşuluyor. Ama bunun gerçek içeriği, uygulama açısından yapılması gerekenler sanırım birazcık daha netleştirilmesi gerekiyor. Bu sempozyumun çıkışında buradan ayrıldığınız zaman hepinizin farklı düşüncelerde olacağını, daha farklı detaylı bilgilerle donanmış olarak gideceğinizi umuyorum. İşte bu katkıyı sağlayacak konuşmacılarımızdan Profesör Javier SARDINA'yı ben şimdi konuşmasını yapmak üzere kürsüye davet ediyorum. Profesör SARDINA, the floor is yours.
Thank you. morning. I don't know if you hear me. I guess you do. It's a pleasure to be here. It's actually a privilege to be here. It's a pleasure to work with him, with Ekoteks for so many years. And I'm here after 2 years. We had these rough times in the last couple of years, so let's hope that everything goes well from now on. And we survive this crisis that we are going through, which is quite stressful. I don't know if I should pass my own course. Oh, okay. So sustainability, carbon footprint, we're all in this together. What is my take? Why am I here? What am I going to tell you? Well, there are multiple topics of conversation, not just carbon footprint, not just energy, many different things that we have been talking about for the last 5 to 10 years. And my impression is that we are still only scratching the surface of the problem. I just put here a few of the issues that should be enough to occupy hundreds and hundreds of people for, let's say, decades, but we don't have the time, we don't have the resources, so we're going to have to focus. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about sustainability resources, namely materials, something that is central to the textile sector, to the fashion industry. And I'm also going to be talking about carbon footprint. Do we really understand that what we are talking about? Because we have a problem. The problem is that the brands are very close to the public, very close to the consumers. And the brands, the fashion brands, hate to give people bad news. So they always talk about positives. And are these positives really that positive? Are we getting the news, the real news? Do we have all the information? Is the information any good? Or are we maybe just painting over a nice picture of growth, sustainable growth, but are we leaving something behind? Those are the main topics of my talk today. So without further ado, we all seen pictures like this. First topic of today would be carbon footprint in the fashion industry. We've all seen things like that, and we think that we know perfectly well how to use this data, the data on carbon footprint, and of course to use it to our particular purposes. If we want to push a specific type of fiber or fabric, we'll say it's low carbon footprint. If we want to talk about or push some specific process, we will sing the praises about its carbon footprint, but we really know what we're talking about. Are the numbers that we're using really that sound that we can base our projections on them? So my take on this is that these pictures and these numbers are great for effective communication. But the problem is, are they as meaningful and as precise and as right as we think they are? Because if they are not, we should get good data, we should get better comprehension of this. So let me just, I'm an academician, so I have to explain things. I'm sorry for that. Let's say what we're talking about. We're talking about carbon footprint that, in a very simplified way, is the total set of greenhouse gases, mainly CO2, but many others, that we emit when we make something, or when we do something. That something can be an organization. Ekoteks has a footprint. A university has a footprint, carbon footprint. A product, this jacket, for instance, has a footprint. A person, I as a person, have a carbon footprint. And even an event like this, we can calculate, or we can try to calculate what's the carbon footprint of this event. And during its entire life cycle, of course, this event will be just one day. I hope it will be a few more years. And Ekoteks will go on forever under the direction of Neil Gunn. We all know that. So how do we do that? How do we calculate that? Because numbers are important. We know that we have 10 billion euros, we're a millionaire, and if we have 10,000 euros and we owe 50,000 euros, we're in trouble. So how accurate are our calculations? Do we have 10 billion euros, or do we have only 10,000? Yes, this may seem like a joke, but believe me, it's not. We are that off the mark right now. So we are obsessed with how to measure things. And so we go to standards, and we have recognized standards to measure carbon footprints. But the good thing or the bad thing about this is they have been designed for certain specific industries, but they are being used all over the different industries. They have been devised especially for the petroleum industry, but now they are being used all over the place. And things that work very well for the petroleum industry, because they have some specific processes all over the world, they're exactly the same. They are not so easily applicable to other types of industry. We'll see some data on that. And the first thing that I want to convey to you is that it's very, very difficult to get good data and to get reliable data. The smaller the system that we are trying to understand. So just for a second, just for clarification, let's talk about husbandry, which is something very important for certain specific countries and certain specific industrial producing countries. Like, let's say about raising a cow or maybe raising a sheep. This is a very CO2 producing process. But when we talk about the products that we make, we get a lot of products out of it. So the carbon footprint of the product is much smaller. So we need to know what we are talking about. So maybe raising a cow has a very high carbon footprint, but we are talking about what we are getting out of it. We're getting milk, and we're getting dairy products. So first and second type of products. We're getting meat, we're getting derived products from meat. We get wool, leather, apparel, and footwear. So that large carbon footprint from husbandry gets divided up between many, many different products. So those products have a very low carbon footprint. So we need to understand exactly what we are talking about, and we need to focus very well our discussions. So if we say husbandry is bad, or maybe agriculture is bad, we need to know what we are getting out of it, the products, and we're measuring the products. But are we measuring well the products? Okay, the short answer is no, it's not. We are not measuring very well. And the problem with this is that many of this data are being used to push specific agendas. If you're in the cotton business, you're going to talk good about the cotton. If you're in the synthetics, you're going to talk very well about polyester. So the numbers can be turned around, and maybe they don't mean anything. So let's do a quick exercise about fabric. So has cotton a smaller CFP, carbon footprint, than polyester? That's a really interesting question. But what's the answer? The answer is we really don't know. That's a problem. Why don't we know? Okay, I'm sorry, this is going to be very boring because it are going to be graphics and graphics and graphics, but I'll try to lighten it a little bit for you. I have here some different fibers, polyester made in USA, cotton made in USA, and now the message is made in USA. We will get to this later when we talk about cotton, we talk about organic cotton. This is going to be a very interesting, well, actually we have it over there, point. You have to talk about very specific systems, and the numbers are really, really interesting. So we see that if we take polyester, we don't have, of course, crop cultivation. That would be the green column, because you don't have cultivation. But you have a huge footprint. These are kilograms of emitted CO2 per kilograms of spoon fiber. When we're doing fiber production, of course, this is chemistry. And then the total is the black column. This is the sum of the green one plus the orange one. So it seems that cotton in the USA has a smaller carbon footprint than polyester in the USA. Organic cotton, and this seems to be a very good news, has a smaller footprint than regular cotton. In India, the footprint is different. So, message, you need to localize your discussions. So this becomes very, very interesting when you're talking about exportation, because cotton is not cotton. It's Indian cotton, it's Turkish cotton, it's Chinese cotton. And these are very, very different vegetables, but you understand. Recycled fiber has a carbon footprint, a small one, but it's a carbon footprint. So recycling is not the answer to everything. But the real message of this slide is on the other side. Those data are just for cotton. Cotton from China, So the problem is we cannot even talk about cotton from one specific country. We have to go region by region, and the numbers get really, really interesting. Those are the carbon footprints for the production of cotton from different regions in China. Look at the difference. You have Xinjiang on the left, the smaller carbon footprint. You have Hebei on the middle, huge carbon footprint. So geolocalization is very important. So we go to the process and the place. So it's not even China versus Turkey. It's which part of Turkey versus which part of China. We need to get to this level of detail. And unfortunately, there's some hidden message in this slide. Did you realize which is the region in China which has the smaller carbon footprint for cotton? Xinjiang. Do we know any problems coming from Xinjiang? Of course we do. Are they related? I bet my life on it. So sometimes numbers tell social stories as well. So what you get from some place, carbon footprint, you are getting from slave labor. Everything is related. That's sort of what I want to say, that it's not as easy to isolate a carbon footprint from all other issues, from environmental issues, from social issues, because they are all related. And what you gain on one side, you may be losing on another. But look at the differences. I mean, the carbon footprint in Hebei province is far, far worse than that of polyester. So we need to know what we're talking about. Simplifications are very, very dangerous in this place. But that's just the fabric. That's the fiber. What about fabrics? Well, wool, amazing, natural fiber. Everybody wants natural fibers. But apparently, some studies point to wool has a very high carbon footprint. But there is a problem with these studies. On the right side of the screen, you will see 5 different studies on the same type of material, wool. The numbers are completely different. So the problem is that we're not really sure if what people are reporting here are coming from the same methodologies. So it's not as easy as I get a number and I already start working with it, because I need to know how that number has been arrived at, because we can be measuring 2 very, very, very, very different things. So the numbers are not as good as we think they are, and we are being fed numbers and making decisions and making investments on numbers which are really, really bad. Now, the really funny part of carbon footprint is that the industry is the lesser part of the problem. The bigger part of the problem is the consumers. So it's not how you produce the garment, it's how you use it. So here you have some studies about different steps in the production of a garment. You have this is for polyester, then you have a cotton, this is for a polyester t-shirt, a cotton t-shirt. But look to the right side of each of those graphics. Polyester, yes, we are getting a lot of emissions of CO2 when we make it, but look at the use and the disposal. Disposal is not so bad, but use is very large. But now we have a problem. The problem is we don't know how to measure the use of the CO2 emissions related to use, because we don't know how people are using the garments. There is another study on the right-hand side of the slide, but this is for cotton, and see that they went into a little more detail. They went for the chain. They made this t-shirt in India, so we have data from India, which are going to be different from this same t-shirt made in Bangladesh or made in China or made in anywhere else. But they calculated in Germany, because they think that it will go to Europe. I mean, that's success if you're an exporter, of course. But look at the height of the bars. Consumers are emitting far more greenhouse gases when they use and they wash and they dry the clothes than the industry is. So what is apparently an industrial problem is really not. Industry is a smaller part. It's not negligible, of course, but it's a smaller part. So we need to talk to the consumers and tell them what you do matters quite a lot. Otherwise, we will not hit our marks. And we need to hit our marks if we want to keep global warming under control, if there is any way of controlling that. And then there are the brands. The brands are apparently the drivers of this carbon footprint madness that we are already under. These are self-reported data from the brands. Can you trust them? The short answer is no, absolutely not. Why? CEOs are more concerned about the bottom line than carbon emissions, and they understand that. And people feeding them data are very concerned about getting their invoices paid. So we get this. I'm sorry, I'm not politically correct. I will say what I want to say, what I need to say, what I think people need to hear. You cannot invite me next year, don't worry. I'll take it. But let me walk you through this. These are 4 European brands, just not to mix many different things. And what I did here, I compared the last data that I had available, which are sales in green for 2019, and the reported carbon footprint on, of course, the black bar. So the first 3, more or less, are coherent. If you choose the right units, then you can see a relationship between 2:1 to 8:1 between the sales and the carbon footprint, which is, of course, what you expect, because the sales are coming from the production. So there should be some sort of relationship. The numbers are too wide. The variation is too wide. 2:1, 8:1, okay. But still, since we have all these uncertainties and measure them, I'll take it. But look at the last one. In the last one, you have a lot of sales, no carbon footprint. Okay, I don't know about you, but I freeze when I see this. Like, not in this world. Maybe they're producing in Mars, but not on Earth. Of course, then they solve the problem if they're producing in Mars. Why do we know this is strange? They're using the same value chain as everyone else. It's not that they have different producers. So the numbers are fairy tales. Don't ever believe self-reported carbon footprints coming from the brands. They're doing that beautiful word, green, that beautiful word, washing, putting them together, and that's what we get. So that's their way to pass the pressure onto you, because they have to answer to the customers, and the customers don't want to hear the truth. So these are what the numbers tell us. They don't tell us really anything. And that's a problem, because we're used to numbers. And the numbers are staggering, because the problem is not the industry. The industry is trying to reach a solution, the manufacturing industry. What's the problem? The problem is the consumer. I'm sorry, it has to be said. The problem is the consumer. I have here some recent numbers about the trend of what we need to manufacture to keep consumers happy. The numbers are mind-blowing. From 1975 to 2018, global per capita textile production has increased from 5.9 kilograms, from 6 kilograms per person per year to 13. So now we are consuming twice as much clothes that 25 years ago, 35 years ago. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, let's see other numbers. Global consumption of apparel was 62 million tons per year in 2020, so the day before yesterday, and is projected to reach 50% more in 2030, 1.5. I mean, that's volume. So we need to produce more. Fashion brands are producing twice as much garments today than in the year 2000. So yes, they are demanding more, because people are demanding more. The average person expenditure, and this is the really driver. The real driver of everything is this one. The amount of money that people spend in clothes with respect to their salary to buy more clothes are becoming less and less. You used to pay about 30% of your salary, of your income, disposable income, sorry, in the 1950s to buy your wardrobe. It was 12% to buy more clothes in 2009, and it was 5% in 2020. So prices are going down and down and down, and people are buying more and more and more. And this is the bottom line. This is what we are. And we are not up against, because the industry wants to make things, of course, but the problem is the consumers. Here's a fun data. People think that Italians are crazy about fashion, and they buy lots of clothes. Look at the consumption per kilograms per person in Europe. Look at which country is the highest consumer of clothes in Europe. The UK. Probably if I ask you, you would never think the UK is the most fashionable country in the world. Well, they're trying. They're not getting it, they're not achieving it, but they're trying. Good. Anyway, the numbers are telling one story. The consumers are driving the carbon footprint. The consumers are driving the generation of more and more clothes. So when people are putting pressure on the industry, we'll not get anywhere. Either people stop buying, or we have to provide them with clothes. So all those people trying to say, the brands are bad, the industry is bad, talk to the consumers, please. You'll get farther. So, yes, we have to clothe the masses, not feed them, thank goodness, but just clothe the masses. So we need to talk about materials. And materials are really interesting, because they appear to be one thing, but they are a whole different thing altogether. So let's say organic cotton. I'm just preparing the stage for one of the next talk that you will be talking about, organic pamuk, Turkish organic pamuk, okay? So organic cotton. Organic cotton seems to be a solution, but this is a problem. The problem is organic cotton is not a product. It's the product of a process. And in that process, you give up things. You don't want to use excess water. You don't want to use genetic modified organisms, which are more resistant, so they give you greater yields. You don't want to use pesticides, so you're going to get reduced yields. You don't want to use chemicals, because, okay, we are reducing the environmental footprint, but we are also reducing the yields. And this is something has to give. Why? Because brands have bought into this organic cotton madness. And now they're saying that, some of them are saying that by 2030, and one of them is saying by 2025, their whole their whole cotton line will be organic. Let's see if it's possible. Well, is organic cotton good? Yes it is. Not because of you reduce the amount of water you need, because that is not related to the organic part, that's related to how you cultivate. So you can cultivate regular cotton using the same irrigation techniques, so you will have the same use of water. So there's no difference there. It's better for global warming, for carbon footprint? Not really. The differences are small, very small. Now, organic cotton is really good for one thing. It prevents eutrophication. That means that since we are not feeding the rivers and the lakes with a lot of phosphate, especially phosphates and nitrates, the growth of algae, the growth of plants is less. So we have cleaner waterways. So that's good, okay? So this is the good news. The bad news is we don't have enough land to grow organic cotton to transform the cotton industry to organic cotton. So just to give you some numbers based on the 2016-2017 harvest data, the organic cotton fiber produced was 0.12 million tons. The total cotton at that point was 25.2 million tons. Those are the data from the organic certified land. Now, if we take this data and do a projection, The thing is, right now, the certified land to grow organic cotton is about the size of the Istanbul province. Worldwide, we're not talking in Turkey, we're talking worldwide. It's about 5,000 square kilometers, something like that. If we were to switch, the total land area used for cotton growth is something on the order of 320,000 square kilometers. So that's about half Turkey, a little bit less, maybe 45% of the total area of the country. If we were to switch with this data to organic cotton, we would need to cultivate the whole of the country, all the 700 and some thousand square kilometers of Turkey, plus half of Iraq. I don't think you want to handle half of Iraq in your country. So these are the numbers. They are staggering. Do we have the land? No. So we need to find alternative solutions. We need other forms of cotton which are not organic, because the problem with organic is it takes up so much land that we don't have it for it. But these are what I call the bad news. But there are some ugly news. And the ugly news are, if you work the data, you realize that we have been fed lies. Sorry, lies. Why? Okay, I have taken the data of how much cotton you can grow in 1 hectare of land, and how much cotton you grow into organic cotton in the same hectare of land. And because of you are giving up yield, the amount of cotton that you get from the same surface area should be less organic cotton than normal organic cotton. And this is what we see in this slide. The darker bars represent the yield of organic cotton. I'm sorry, the yields of regular cotton. And the lighter bars represent the yields of organic cotton. And they should be like that. The darker one should be higher than the lighter one. And this is true for the world as a whole, and I chose the USA as a representative country. But there are other countries. These are cotton-producing countries. Country number 1, they have almost the same yield. Okay, this is strange, but still the regular cotton produces higher yields. But look at the country number 2 and contestant number 2 and contestant number 3 for the world crown of growing organic cotton. They declare higher yields, higher crop yields from organic cotton than for regular cotton. This is biologically impossible. So the only conclusion is they are lying. If you go to the right-hand side of the slide, you will probably find out why. Transparency index, it tells you how corrupt or non-corrupt a country is. And country number 2 and country number 3 rank very low in that index. So, conclusion, you cannot trust what they're telling you. And after many years, even gods got news of that, and they realized that they have been putting on the market fake organic cotton for many years. I mean, they just declared that they found 20,000 tons, okay? That's about 20% of the organic cotton put on the market in one single year, and that's what they declare. My calculation is probably double than that. But anyway, this is what we are having. So there is a reputation crisis in the organic cotton market. Please do something with it. I know that you're doing something with it, but this is the bottom line. We need to be far more accountable and demonstrate that this is whatever we call organic cotton, it is organic cotton. This is just a declaration. This is some piece of words, some words on a piece of paper. They're worthless. So creating value means creating reputation. Reputation has to be based on facts, not just in self-declarations. But of course, cotton is just part of the solution. We need more materials. So let me put something which is a contradiction in terms. It's what the Americans call an oxymoron. Polyester, natural polyester. I mean, polyester is this synthetic fiber for excellence, par excellence. So can we make natural polyester? And now I'm missing into science. Science can provide some of the solutions. Of course, science will also be behind the Turkish organic cotton, we already know that. So we all love polyester. It's a cheap fabric. It goes on forever. You can do lots and lots of things. So getting rid of polyester is simply not an option. People think it's an option, but it's not an option. Otherwise, we just kill fast fashion, for instance, which is, of course, a lot of jobs everywhere. So this is what, roughly, for a chemist, polyester looks like. It's a chain of two different links. And you have to make the links, and then you have to make the chain. So the problem is, to make the links, you go to the petroleum industry. So in the end, you get polyester from the petroleum industry, and we all know that that's a problem. So can we make the chains, can we make the links in this chain from natural sources? That's what I call natural polyester. The answer is we are getting there. So the problem is that this is what you do in the chemical industry, in the petroleum industry, many operations, but they are coming from oil. So no, you cannot do that. It uses a lot of energy, but can we do something else? Can we get the same, exactly the same links coming from nature? The answer is yes. And forget about the complexity. This is what chemists do. And chemical engineers, of course. I mean, we're very good at drawing this kind of things and say, oh, we do many things. But in the end, look at the right-hand side. This is one of the links in that chain. This is called ethylene glycol, and we're getting it from starch, from corn, even from cellulosic biomass, the same place where we get viscose and modal. So right now, at this point, we can make 200,000 tons per year of this bio-based link for polyester. So we are getting to the point where we can start thinking about half of natural polyester, one of the links. The other, we're almost getting there. So we are now being able to derive from biomass as well. The yield is quite good, so that means that we get a lot from the biomass. We need that because we don't want residues. But this is still on a laboratory scale, so we can make probably 1,000 tons per year. But given 5 or 10 years, we can get to the point where we can substitute a sizable amount of petroleum for making polyester for bio-based polyester. So at that point, I think we will be becoming better and better because we are substituting the main source of our problem, which is the reliance on petroleum. So there are very mixed messages here. We have problems with the numbers, but we are working in substituting products, which is what we do. We get better and better all the time. So the initial question was sustainability.
Privilege as a keynote speaker, and I think this is the final and the main point we are just telling to the audience, I think. All right. So what are we missing, really?
We're missing a little honesty. We need to tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. So please tell us exactly what the problems are. And we are missing the science. We need to fund more science because we don't have the technology to really go zero in our emissions. We need to do more science. If people tell you that they have solutions, we're still probably 15, 20 years away from getting the technology to find the solutions, but we need to get there. I mean, there is no question about that. We have seen we had a very rough year. Global warming is here, definitely. I mean, what happened a few months ago with these huge fires, the floods, this is coming from global warming. There is absolutely no doubt about that. So it's here, and we need to do something fast. But we need to do something real. We need to stop talking about greenwashing. We need to stop doing greenwashing and start doing actual science. So we need to put more people in the labs, in the industry, working towards real solutions. If someone tells you, I have a solution right now, he or she are probably lying. Probably after your funds or probably after your money. Just don't do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your valuable presentation. And well, I think being as a keynote speaker, so we have a bit longer time than the normal. Efendim, Profesör SARDINA'ya çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Ana mesajı veren konuşmacı olarak bugün kendisine birazcık torpil yaptık. Biraz süreyi fazlaca verdik. Ama bundan sonraki konuşmacılarımızda bu fazla esnekliğin fazla sağlayamayacağımızı altını çiziyorum. İkinci konuşmacımız bu oturumdaki Ekoteks Genel Direktörü Sayın Dirk.F.Javier. Sevgili Dirk direkt gelemedi. Onun için bize uydulararası bir bağlantıyla katılacak. Bağlayabilir miyiz Dirk Bey? Bu arada ben konuşma başlığını size aktarayım. Avrupa Birliği Yeni Tekstil Stratejisi. Dirk VANTYGHEM'ı birçoğunuz yakından tanıyorsunuzdur diye düşünüyorum. Türkiye'de uzun yıllar kaldı ve şimdi bakalım yeni tekstil stratejisiyle ilgili mesajı neymiş? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Özbek. Good to see you. I hope you can see me and hear me well in Istanbul.
Yes.
All fine? Very good. Good. First of all, I would like to really greet all of you, colleagues from Turkey, from the Ekoteks member associations. I obviously regret that I cannot be with you physically in Istanbul for different reasons, but I'm happy at least to connect virtually and indeed share with you, let's say, some perspective from the Brussels scene to explain, to share with you what is happening here at the level of the European Union towards the textile industry and how it may impact also our colleagues in Turkey. I have a few slides. I will try to share them from my screen. Let's see if this technology is working. Can you see my slide? Does that work? Do you see me and or my slides? Yeah, okay, I think you have I see the slides, okay. Maybe before I say a few words about the European textile strategy, which is in the making. For those members in the audience in Istanbul that would not be familiar with Ekoteks, so our role here in Brussels is to represent the interests of the combined European textile and clothing industry towards the European Union. So our role is to promote, to defend the interests of around 160,000 companies. You can see the numbers, working with the European Commission, the European Parliament, again promoting and defending our combined interests. I'm happy to say that we have four members coming from Turkey on the screen, and I'm happy to say that we have for many years a very active, strong contribution and participation from our Turkish members in the Ekoteks activities. So let me, as I said, maybe step a little bit back from the previous presentation, which, by the way, was a very interesting to follow, to listen, and again share with you how here in Brussels we are looking at the future of the textile industry. As I put on this slide, I think we should start from this double challenge that we have today. On the one hand, there's obviously the impacts and the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot has changed in the supply chain. There's a lot of discussion about reshoring. A lot of things are changing in the textile industry, and I would say not everything is bad, not everything is negative. I think we see, partly as a result of COVID-19, a kind of increased awareness of the importance of the textile industry, which I think we should use towards developing a new business model for our sector. At the same time, here in Brussels, some of you will know it, we have a very ambitious European Union, very engaged, very committed to develop a new business model, if you want, for the European economy, focusing very much on sustainability. I think all of you are familiar with the EU Green Deal that has been announced many, many times. Also focusing very much on the decarbonization of the industry. So this famous Fit for 55 package. A lot of ideas around skills, around people, and as we call it, as we kind of try to summarize it, trying to push the industry to go for a sustainable and digital transition. Now, within this framework, within, behind those buzzwords that you see on the screen, the European Union is preparing and issuing, I could say, a law which will have an impact on the European textile industry in terms of setting standards, restrictions, what is possible, what is not possible, the global dimension, etc. Very specifically, or more specifically, the European Commission, which, as you know, is the, let's say, the executive body in Europe, is preparing to release a dedicated EU textile strategy in the next 2 months. So before the end of this year, the European Commission will publish an official document, an official communication focusing on the textile industry. Strong focus on the sustainability, so the environmental impact of our sector. How do we measure that, and how do we reduce that environmental impact? What kind of solutions should be developed? So that is quite unique that the European Commission, who is covering a very wide range of topics, wide range of sectors, will have this dedicated communication, that kind of an official business plan, if you want, focusing on our sector. At the same time, the European Union is also discussing, reflecting on a new, what is called EU industrial strategy. And they have identified 14 sectors of the economy, 14 industrial sectors, including textiles. And for each of those 14, really try to make an assessment of what is the competitiveness of those sectors in the global context. What are the dependencies? What kind of support in terms of innovation and research do we need? How can we develop a pathway towards a sustainable and competitive industry, again, across those 14 sectors? So the message is simply to say that today Brussels is looking more closely to the textile industry than ever before. That makes some people nervous. We from Ekoteks think that this is an opportunity. This gives us an opportunity to shape, contribute, develop a new framework within which our companies can grow and can prosper. And on that basis, Ekoteks has, over the last few months, developed what we call a vision paper, a strategic document where we have tried to summarize what are the essential, what is our ambition, and what are the essential criteria, the essential elements to develop this competitive and sustainable European textile and clothing industry. And let me, in just a few minutes, share with you the main components, the main elements that are part of this strategy. Overall, you can see the 3 targets that we have established at European level. We want to be a global leader on sustainable textiles. We need to strengthen the efficiency of the European textile industry, and clearly we want to increase our global market share. So we want to be more competitive in the global context. Within each of those three objectives, we try to elaborate, what does it require? What are the measures? What are the policy tools that should be developed to achieve that objective? So let me go through them, not in every technical detail, but try to share with you some of the main points. The first one about be a global leader on sustainable textiles. We had a very interesting presentation from Professor SARDINA, essentially highlighting the complexity, the complexity in defining what is sustainable textiles and how do we get there. What does it mean, sustainable textiles? So, one of the first action points in our document is that we need to adopt coherent and harmonized standards. How do we measure sustainability? I can tell you in Brussels there is a lot of work, there's a lot of discussion going on that very topic, and Ekoteks is fully involved. There's discussion on product environmental footprint, how do you measure the CO2 impact, as we just heard. So that is an essential first requirement that we need to work on. Second, if you want to be successful around sustainability, we need to develop more realistic business models. Sustainable textile products tend to be more expensive. So how can we develop with the industry, with the authorities, develop a realistic business model, looking at the cost of sustainable products, taxation. There are different discussions around EPR, extended producer responsibility, again, very much on the agenda in Brussels. We need to look into recycling capacity. In 2025, there will be the obligation in Europe to collect separately textile products, textile waste. That will generate an enormous amount of textile waste that needs to be upcycled, recycled. We need to work on that, and we have, as Ekoteks, some proposals. We need to work with the authorities to promote green public procurement. So we need to create more demand, a bigger market for sustainable textiles, and authorities have to play a role in that. And then finally, again, as the professor said before, we need to work very much with the consumers, because at the end of the day, consumer behavior will be an essential driver to change, will be an essential element to make sustainable textiles a success. So these are some of the apologies. These are some of the essential criteria that we need to work on, and which is essentially part of the Ekoteks policy agenda on a daily basis that we work on here in Brussels. The second objective is about the efficiency. So what can we do as the industry to improve the efficiency of our sector? Here, of course, number one, digitalization is something that is high on our agenda and where we need to invest. We need to support our textile and clothing companies, especially the smaller ones, to make this digital transition across the supply chain, but also within the companies. There is still great potential to introduce and adopt digitalization that will increase the efficiency. At the same time, we need to work on people. So we need to develop new green and digital skills. So we need to make sure that the workforce in our companies understand those digital developments, understand those sustainable requirements, make sure they are properly trained, and make sure that we can attract young, skilled people to our industry. In Europe, it's probably our biggest challenge today to attract the young generation to work for the textile and clothing industry. Under point 3 on the screen, of course, we need to invest in research and innovation. And again, this is echoing what Professor SARDINA was saying before. We need more research, we need more innovation. European Union, as some of you know, is is allocating very important funds, programs to support, to finance such innovation. These programs often go to other sectors than textiles. So we need to ideally develop a dedicated program that will support innovation and research in the textile industry. We need to work more with startups. Certainly in Europe, we see a lot of local small initiatives in the textile and clothing industry with strong focus on sustainability. Often these are small, very small initiatives that require support. So again, as the European textile and clothing industry, we need to help them to grow, help them to connect within the supply chain. So there is a responsibility for all of us to work on that. Number 5, in talking about efficiency, we need to try and reduce the dependency on access to raw materials, which is certainly today a big issue, and we need to improve the energy efficiency. I think all of us know the recent trends when it comes to the cost of energy, gas and other energy sources. They are having a major impact on the competitiveness, certainly of European companies, when comparing to competitors, colleagues from around the world. So we need definitely to work on the energy efficiency of our industry. So again, these are different action points on which Euroteks with its members are working in close cooperation dialogue with the European institutions. And then thirdly, the global dimension. It's clear that if we want the European textile and clothing industry to remain competitive, we need to take a look at that global perspective. After all, textile and clothing is for sure one of the most globalized sectors of the economy. So we need to look at that global picture. Here again, a number of focus or action points which are part of our of the Euroteks vision. Market surveillance is essential. So making sure that all the products that are produced outside Europe do respect and comply with all the relevant standards, chemical standards, environmental standards, and make sure there is a proper surveillance of imported products. In Europe, we import double, in the European Union, we import double as much as we export. So it's obviously important to make sure there is a proper control, making sure that all products comply with relevant standards and legislation. We should, as much as possible, develop rules at the global level, not just in Europe, not just maybe in the US. We should, across the industry, try to develop multilateral rules. So making sure that among or within the industry, we create this level playing field where every textile and clothing company, whether it's based in Europe, Turkey, US, Bangladesh, China, that we all play by the same rules, that there is an open and fair competition within the industry. So that's something we need to work on. From a European perspective, we're certainly looking forward to intensify our cooperation with US, with the new US administration. I think there's a lot that can be done in terms of mutual recognition, for example. As you may know, we are working hard to finalize the free trade agreement with South America, the Mercosur countries. And we also see a growing potential in Africa. More closely to the European Union, of course, for Euroteks, the EU-Turkey item is an important element on our agenda. We know that there are discussions, let's say, to open the negotiations for a modernized customs union between the European Union and Turkey, which we would certainly welcome very much, because it would greatly facilitate trade transactions between the European Union and Turkey. And I think it will be to the benefit of the colleagues sitting in Istanbul in Turkey, as well as the colleagues here in the European Union. More widely, we also have the Pan-Euromed region, including North Africa, Southeast Europe, where we try to promote reshoring, trying to develop an integrated supply chain within this, let's call it, bigger European context. And then last point under this strategy, under this vision, is we need to help specifically our small and medium-sized companies to access new markets outside Europe. So we need to more actively promote through economic diplomacy the opportunities, the quality of European textile and clothing products in emerging third markets. So these are very quickly, let's say, some of the action points that we have developed in close dialogue, in close cooperation with our members. So this is a kind of a guideline for Euroteks to move forward. And again, within each of those points, there is European legislation, there are European initiatives being developed here in Brussels. So our job at Euroteks is to make sure that those points, that this legislation is going in the right direction, is supporting our companies to be more and to remain competitive. So that's what I wanted to share with you this morning. A final maybe slide, if I may. We will be discussing those points more in detail actually at the joint IAF and Euroteks conference coming up in November. I know some colleagues from Turkey will be joining us, so I look forward to meet some of you in person and to discuss much more in detail on the points that I quickly summarized in my presentation. So I'll stop here for now, thanking you for the, again, invitation, and look forward to see some of you in Istanbul or in Antwerp later this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. VANTYGHEM. We like to thank you very much for your valuable contribution to the conference, to the symposium. Efendim, süre biraz uzuyor. Umarım yönetim bana müdahale hakkı verir uzatma durumlarında. Onu bir hatırlatmak isterim. Zaten programımızın gerisinde gidiyoruz. Soru meselesinde eminim ki sorularınız çok olacaktır. Fakat bugün böyle biraz yoğun bir sempozyum oldu. Molalarda değerli konuşmacılarımızla, burada olanlarla direkt temas kurmanızı öneriyorum. Olmayanlarla da elektronik ortamda teması sağlamanız herhalde en pratik yol olacaktır. Bundan sonraki konuşmacımız Associate Professor Doçent Sean Cormier, Fashion Institute of Technology'den, yine o da bize yukarıdan bağlanacak. Profesör Cormier, Tekstil Geliştirme ve Pazarlama bölümünün Amerika'da bölüm başkanı ve konuşma başlığı Certainty ile Merchandise etkin ve güvenli kılınması. Özellikle günümüzde bu konferansın da ana temalarından bir tanesi olan izlenebilirlik, biliyorsunuz çok önemli. Lif bazında başlayıp bitmiş ürünün sonuna kadar malzemenin takip edilebilmesi ve kanıtlanması bundan sonraki dönemde çok önem arz ediyor. Profesör Cormier bize bu konuda aydınlatıcı bir mesaj verecek. Professor Cormier, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and it's really good to be with all of you. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I've been to Istanbul and Turkey many times, both in my experience in working and as a professor here at the Fashion Institute of Technology. So thank you everyone for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to speak to you all. And I think this is going to be an interesting presentation because of what others have said. So I'm just going to bring up my show.
Yes, we can see, yes.
Perfect, good. Okay, so a lot of people have been talking about truth so far. You know, how do we know what the brands are saying is true? How do we know that we're really giving the customers what they expect? So what I'm going to be talking about is keeping your brand real. Brands today are demanding traceability throughout their supply chain. And this is really important for not only the brands, but for the consumers, and so that we know where we're getting our products from. So, a question that was just brought up recently from our other speaker, is the organic products that you're buying really organic? Or because we know that it costs more, so our manufacturers really putting in that effort. Is the recycled polyester really derived from recycled polyester? How do manufacturers ensure sustainable supply chains? How do we make sure that the cotton or other products that we're making do not use child labor? And lastly, how can we prevent counterfeit goods from getting into our market? Well, here in the US, just like in the EU and everywhere else, there are regulations, okay? So anything that you put on a garment, any label that is misrepresented is punishable by law here in the US and in the EU. So product claims such as pure Pima cotton, certified organic, 100% recycled polyester, all must be supported by documentation. And as our other Professor SARDINA mentioned, people don't always tell the truth. So how can we bring truth to our supply chain? Here at FIT, we did some research, and we found that in bed sheets, 89% of the bed sheets that we looked at were not compliant with their labeling regulations. So in other words, as somebody said, as Professor SARDINA said, people are cheating, okay? And why is that? Well, they're trying to make their margins, they're trying to make their profit goals, and so they're not always using the raw materials that they say that they're going to be doing. So here in the US, we have the Federal Trade Commission, which oversees these issues. And if there's a question of labeling violation, they actually go out to those brands and address it. And of course, counterfeit goods. Really the difference between like a pair of Levi jeans and another brand is really that orange tag. How can we be secure in our supply chain to make sure that the products are really real? Global brands are finding it hard to untangle themselves from Chinese cotton, Xinjiang cotton, okay, which is using forced labor. We know about Uzbekistan. So, and it's not just those countries, but it's a global issue where child labor is being used, and we want our brands to be pure. So at the Fashion Institute, we had a forced labor forum. Right? We brought in people from Homeland Security to talk to our students and our colleagues about the issues that are going on right now. And it turns out that the US government is going globally to out there to talk to all types of textile manufacturers to ensure that they're not using child labor or forced labor for their products. So how can we ensure this? Well, a solution that we came up with is using the unique properties of DNA as a unique identifier and applying it to various textile products. And what we tried to do is we teamed up with a company so that our students can learn how to apply this technology to fibers, fabrics, and finished products to ensure the product integrity. Paper trails are messy. And as it's been said, people don't always tell the truth. They just want to impress their buyers, they want to get paid, etc. And paper trails don't really necessarily link the fibers all the way through the finished product, or what I like to call from dirt to shirt. And that's what we're trying to trace. Can you prove it? That's the key question, and that's what's been asked so far. So, my department, the Textile Development and Marketing Department, is working with industry to bring cutting-edge technologies to our students, and this semester we introduced some new technology. We like to think of DNA as standing for developing new skills, nurturing progressive thinking, and applying that new technology. So what we did was we decided on denim. Students like denim. Denim is a very popular item. And our denim washes are some of the most destructive type of washes that we know of. So our plan was to apply DNA to cotton fibers, process it, and then distress wash it. And if we could figure out, if we could be able to trace the product after an aggressive stone, bleach, enzyme wash, then we feel that we would have better traceability throughout our supply chain. Okay, so, and of course, you know, we're using enzymes and bleaching. So this work resulted in a paper in the American Association of Textile Chemists and Colors that I and some of my colleagues published together. And what it showed was that we can trace cotton fibers from the farm all the way through the finished product. And here is what DNA is all about. So by utilizing this DNA technology in cotton, in wool, in acrylic, in viscose, we can really begin to understand our supply chain much better and have certainty that our products are what they say they are. So we create a unique DNA marker. Okay, the DNA is segmented, reorganized, and as a matter of fact, we've created our own DNA code for the Fashion Institute of Technology. So actually we have our own DNA tag, which we can apply to various products. These tags are applied at the gin, okay? And it's a very unique thing. We all know that when we're processing cotton at the cotton gin, we need about a 5% solution of water. And this is where the DNA is actually mixed in. So the beauty of this process is that we're not adding to the manufacturing process. We're using that same process and now being able to tag it without adding cost. We have a number of different ways that we can test it. So if you were out at the field, you can use our handheld device, or maybe in your manufacturing facility, you have a laboratory where you can have your portable one, or you can actually send it into the Applied DNA Sciences laboratory and have your product authenticated. So now we can trace our fiber from fiber to yarns to fabric, and of course, we have our finished denim jeans. And here's an example of the traceability. Now we know for certain where that product came from. And now we have full supply chain traceability. We can trace that it was maybe American cotton that was shipped to China to be spun, that was woven in India, and then sold back here in the United States. And we know exactly where that product has been. At Certainty, we capture this data, secure it, so that brands now have that traceability in their records of their supply chain. We've also been looking at the plastic problem. You know, we all know that plastics are almost everywhere, and it's very hard to reuse this plastic, but we're finding ways to redo it. So our students actually went out around New York looking at this particular problem. Consumers list plastics as their biggest concern with wastes in oceans. And we need to be cognizant of what our consumers are looking for, what our consumers want. So how do you know for certain that your polyester is truly recycled? Because we all do want to use recycled polyester. We know that there's way too much waste in our dumps, in our oceans, etc. But how are we certain that that product is really what it says it is? Well, again, we're not going to be adding to this manufacturing process. So when we take the polyester, grind it down, make the polyester pellets. We can, at that master batch, apply our unique DNA tag that will withstand the heat of recycling. We all know that polyester has to be heated up to about 230 degrees centigrade. So the DNA does not get destroyed in either the bleaching of cotton products or in the processing of recycled polyester. So we can tag it at the facility. It will go through the extrusion. We can make our fibers. We can test that product now at the weaver or the knitting facility, test it at the manufacturer, and now the retailer knows for certain that we know where those products came from. We're also making this certainty for leather, so that we all want leather to be ethically sourced, okay? So it's important that we tag the leather that is truly ethically sourced. And I think that if we all get together and all the good guys are tagging their products, all the bad guys won't be, and we will have a better understanding of our supply chain and where the products came from. So brands, again, can tag it, identify it. It can withstand coatings, finishes. Nothing really destroys it or loses the tag. And now the brands can perform their own testing. I worked for Liz Claiborne for 18 years, and I know for a fact that not all of our suppliers were as ethical as we wanted them to be. And if we asked, was this ethically done, or is this organic really organic? Those suppliers are just going to tell us yes, all right? But we had no way to actually trace that product from the beginning through the processes to the end. We can also apply this product to sewing thread. We know that all garments are made of fabric and thread, all right? And again, we need to be sure where this thread is coming from so that it's not coming from forced labor, it's not coming from unethical sources. So we can apply this to our bill of materials, to our fabrics, to our sewing thread. And again, right at the retailer, we can know for certain that the product is what we're saying it is.
Let me take you through the demonstration.
So let me show you.
The first step is to use a used swab. Take it, push it through the wrapper, take it out. It's important that you use the side that does not have the red line. The next step is to take your UV light, shine it on the top of the tip, make sure there's no red glow. This one's perfect to use. The next step is to take the sample board. You're going to firmly rub this 10 times on the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Take your UV light, shine it using the contrast board. You'll see that beautiful red glow. That indicates that the A&E integrity thread has been used. Let me take you through the demo.
So I would just like to conclude with saying that students are the future, and at the Fashion Institute of Technology, we are trying to train our students and get our students to be aware of new developments within this industry. Our students will be the future business leaders. They are going to be making the decisions that will impact our industry. And bringing this knowledge to them is critical, in my opinion. Students are also customers of textiles. And as all of our customers are demanding more transparency in their products, brands need transparency, consumers want to know that their products are real, and this is what we're doing at the Fashion Institute of Technology. It's all about traceability, transparency, and trust. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Sean. You're just in time, really. And also, the contents were very, very interesting. So, especially your method can be applied to the recycled material. This is another big potential over there. Thank you very much for joining us. Efendim, oturumumuzun sonuncu konuşmasına geldik ve bu oturumun Son konuşmacısı da İstanbul Teknik Üniversitesi'nin Çevre Mühendisliği Bölümü öğretim üyesi Profesör Doktor Seval SÖZEN hanımefendi. Hani İngilizce'de bir laf vardır, the last but not the least. Çevre profesörü olarak değerli hocamız bu oturumu çok daha heyecanlı bir hale getirecek son konuşmacı olarak. Eminim ki kendisini heyecanla izleyeceksiniz. Hocam buyurunuz. Hocamızın konu başlığı tekstil endüstrisinde çevresel ayak izlerinin anatomisi.
How do you go and come back?
Biz bu karbon ayak izini biliyoruz da bu çevresel ayak izi de nereden çıktı acaba? Hocam başlangıç olarak olmazsa şu konuyu bize bir açar mısınız?
Açarım. Yalnız
neymiş bakalım
son konuşmacı olmanın dezavantajını yaşıyorum. Herkes kahve molasına çıkmak istiyor. Şimdi ben onu avantaja çevireceğim. Şöyle bir derleyip toplayıp umarım derli toplu bir sunum yapabilirim size. Gerçekten dışarıdaki ikramlar çok güzel. Onun için çok tutmak istemiyorum. Şimdi ben burada iki şapkamla konuşmak istiyorum. Bunlardan bir tanesi İTÜ Çevre Mühendisliği bölümünün halen aktif öğretim üyesiyim. Bunun dışında da İstanbul Teknik Üniversitesi'nin Teknokent'inde bir araştırma geliştirme firmam var. Şimdi bu firmada yıllardır bu çevresel ayak izlerine kafa yorduk. Bunlar nasıl azaltılır, nedir, neyin nesidir, bu kurumsal nasıl bulunur, işte proses bazı nasıl bulunur? Bununla ilgili bir sürü çalışma yaptık. Onlardan size böyle küçük küçük kupleler vererek en azından bir farkındalık yaratmaya çalışacağım. Görüyorum ki burada daha çok ağırlıklı olarak hazır giyim sanayicileri varlar ama sizin hiçbir kabahatiniz yok. Sizden öncekiler aslında çevresel ayak izlerini oluşturan kurum ya da kuruluşlar diyelim ama siz de bunlardan sorumlusunuz. Dolayısıyla bu sorumluluğu nasıl paylaşmamız gerektiği, bu konuda nasıl adımlar atmamız gerektiği ile ilgili birazcık birlikte sohbet edelim isterim. Şimdi çevresel ayak izleri nedir diye başlayacak olursak aslında bir işletmenin faaliyetleri neticesinde çevreye yarattığı etkiler olarak genel kabaca bir tanım yapabiliriz. Buradaki ana temel felsefe bu kirletmeyi yaparken ne kadar doğal kaynak kullandığı da çok önemli. Doğal kaynaktan ne anlıyorsanız o. Yani bu su olabilir, enerji olabilir veya sizin kullandığınız ham maddeler dahi bu doğal kaynakların içinde siz kendi kurumunuz içinde sayabilirsiniz. Bu işi çevre mühendisliği açısından baktığınızda tabii ki daha çok ağırlıklı olarak bu yapıyor mu? Yapıyor. Kaynak kullanımı dediğimiz zaman su ayak izine ve enerji ayak izine miktar açısından yoğunlaşıyoruz. Ama bir de bunun kirlilik tarafı var. Yani kantitatif olarak ölçmeye kalktığımızda bu endüstrinin bu üretiminden ne kadar kirlilik çıkıyor diye baktığımızda bunu atık su ayak izi ve atık ayak izi olarak ölçüyoruz. Bunun iki tane bacağı var diyelim isterseniz. Biliyorsunuz bütün sizin içinde bulunduğunuz tekstil endüstrisinin tüm üretim süreçlerinde birbirine takip eden bir sürü halkalar söz konusu. Biz bu halkalara kendi dilimizde proses diyoruz. Dolayısıyla her bir halkadan kaynaklanan gerek kantitatif yani miktar açısından gerekse kalitatif kirlilik açısından iz düşümlerini biz proses bazlı ayak izi olarak tanımlıyoruz. Kurumsal ayak izi ise daha önceki konuşmacılar ve profesörün de bahsettiği kurumsal ayak izi ise genel olarak bütün bu endüstrinin nihai ürünü olan ürünü üretirken ki ortaya koymuş olduğu kullanımlar diyelim veyahut da etkiler. Bunu internetten aldım, profesör de kullandı. Çok da güzel bir şey söyledi. İnternetten aldığımız bu rakamlar doğru mu? Ben bilmiyorum. Oradan aldım, size bir farkındalık yaratabilmek için bunu koyuyorum. Gerçekten bilmiyorum. Her endüstrinin, her kademesinde, her prosesinde bu kadar su kullanılıp, bu kadar atık su veya bu kadar kirlilik üretilebilir mi? Biz bunlara inanmamamız gerektiğini, bugünkü birinci konuşmacıdan ve ben de bunu söylüyorum, inanmamamız gerektiğini vurgulayarak bu işi nasıl yapmamız ya da yaptırmamız gerektiğiyle ilgili birazcık bilgi vermek istiyorum. Çevresel ayak izlerinin ne olduğundan bahsettik kabaca. Niçin gerekli? Bir ona bakalım. Esas niçin gerekli biliyor musunuz? Mevcut durumunuzun tespiti için. Nerede duruyoruz? Biz ne yapıyoruz? Gerçekten bu ayak izimiz, durduğumuz yere bastığımız şey nedir'in cevabını bulmamız lazım. Ne kadar su kullanıyoruz? Ne kadar enerji kullanıyoruz bu ürünü üretmek için? Ne kadar atık su üretiyoruz ve başka ne tür atıklar üretiyoruzu önce miktar olarak bilmek durumundayız. Neden? Bunların hepsi bize çünkü para olarak geri dönüyor, maliyet olarak geri dönüyor. Bunu bilmek durumundayız ki rakip üreticilerle, nasıl geri gelirim? Özür dilerim. Rakip üreticilerle benchmarking dediğimiz kıyaslama imkanını bulabilelim. Aksi takdirde biz kendimizin nerede durduğunu bilmiyorsak, nasıl rekabetçi bir ortamda, bir piyasada biz ne yaparız? Rekabet ederiz. Dolayısıyla bunları mutlaka bilmemiz lazım. Neden gereklinin bir başka cevabı da çevresel yönetim sisteminin bir gerekliliği. Biliyorsunuz bütün üsolarda bu tip şeyler soruluyor ve sanayici bunları baştan sona kadar göstermek ve doğrulatmak durumunda. Ayrıca ihracat yapan kuruluşlar için biliyorsunuz belirli çevresel indeksler isteniyor. Bunlardan bir tanesi Higg indeksi. Bunun için mutlaka bu bilgilere sahip olmanız lazım. Su ayak izi ve karbon ayak izi zaten gündemimizin çok önemli konularından bir tanesi. Bunları da bu amaçla ortaya koymamız lazım. Şunu birazcık daha büyük yapmaya çalıştım ama yapamamışım galiba. Esas önemlisi bunlar geri kazanma ve yeniden kullanmanın olmazsa olmaz gereklilikleri. Yani ben nerede ne kadar fazla bir şey kullanıyorum ki bunu daha azaltabilir miyim? Nerede neyi daha fazla kullanıyorum ki bunu birazcık geri kazanabilir miyim? Sorularına cevap bulduğunuz anda aslında siz ürün bazında maliyetinizi büyük ölçüde azaltmış oluyorsunuz. Bütün bunların temel felsefesi aslında çevre sorunlarının günümüzde değişmiş olmasından kaynaklanıyor. Bugüne kadar özellikle Avrupa Birliği uyum sürecinde başlayan çalışmalar neticesinde ve bizim sanayicimizin de içinde bulunduğu durum nedeniyle artık atığa atık olarak değil, yani katma değeri olmayan bir ürün olarak değil, bir kaynak olarak bakıyoruz. Bunda da temel 3 tane prensibimiz var. Bunu da Avrupa Birliği'nden aldık diyelim. 3R prensibi, recycle, reduce ve reuse. Şimdi recycle dediğimiz zaman zaten neyi nereden geri çevireceğimi kararını verebilmek için biraz önce bahsettiğimiz bütün unsurları bilebiliyor olmamız lazım. Bir şeyi azaltabilmek için ne kadar kullandığımızı bilmemiz lazım. Yeniden kullanmak için de neyin nereden kaynaklandığını biliyor ve bundan sonraki adımlarda ne yapmam gerektiğiyle ilgili bir fikrimin olması lazım. Dolayısıyla 3R prensibi aslında arkasından 3E prensibini getiriyor. Çevre, ekonomi ve enerji. Biraz önce miktar olarak konuştuk. Yani biz işin mutfağında, laboratuvarda ne yaptığımızı size biraz kabaca anlatmak istiyorum. Biraz önce gösterdiğim şeyin, daha kantitedeyim. Uzun konuşmuşum üzerinde. Miktar olarak ne yapıyoruz? İsterseniz bunu bir proses bazlı diye düşünün veya isterseniz birbirini takip eden bir sürü ünite diye düşünün ve fabrikanızın kurumsal değerlendirmesini yapın. Bizim yaptığımız şey veya yapılması gereken şey bir üniteye ne kadar ham madde, ne kadar yardımcı kimyasal, ne kadar su ve ne kadar enerji girdiğini belirleyip bunun neticesinde atık su ve atık miktarlarını ve belki de su buharı miktarını, yani benim kaybettiğim su miktarını ve aynı zamanda da enerji miktarını öğrenmeme yarayan bir yöntem bu. İlk yapacağımız iş bu. Ürün bazında miktarımız ne kadar? Bu tekstil piyasasından yapmış olduğumuz bir çalışmanın temsil edici bir örneği, ünite bazında yapılmış bir çalışmadır. Bu endüstri, bakın 1 ton ürününü üretmek için bir prosese ait bu, 40 metreküp su harcıyor. 35 metreküp kadar atık su oluşturuyor. Demek ki ton başına 5 metreküp kadar da bir su buharı kaybediyor. Analizini biz o proses bazında sanayicimize gösterdik. O da kendisine göre muhtelif önlemlerini almaya başladı. Aynı proseste, aynı kutuda diyelim, o prosesi ele aldığımızda 1 ton ürünü için 3,8 megawatt saat enerji tükettiğini gösterdik. Buna karşılık da o prosesten 1,2 ton gibi bir karbondioksit emisyonu yaydığını aslında kendisine belirtmiş olduk. Şimdi bunlar sadece miktarlarla alakalıydı. Ayak izi dediğimiz şey, biraz önce en baştaki slaytta gördüğümüz gibi sadece ne kadar su kullandığınızın veya atık su oluşturduğunuzun bir ölçüsü değil, aynı zamanda yük olarak çevreye ne kadar kirlilik verdiğinizin de bir ölçüsü. Dolayısıyla biraz önce yapmış olduğumuz egzersizi üniteler veya bütün kurum olarak, endüstrinin tamamı olarak kirlenme açısından da yapmamız lazım. Niçin yapmamız lazım? Çünkü kirlenmeyi oluşturan unsurları ve boyutunu belirlememiz lazım ve bu bir kirlenme profili diyoruz. Bu Zero Discharge Hazardous Chemicals standardına, ki biliyorsunuz bütün ihracatçılardan bu standarda uyum isteniyor. Bununla uyumlu stratejiyi geliştirmek için yapmanız lazım. Çünkü nereden ne olduğunu bir şekilde biliyor olmanız lazım. Ayrı ve özel arıtma gerektiren akımları da görebilmeniz için bu tip bir çalışmayı yapmanız lazım. Bunu ne demek istediğimi biraz sonra bir örnek üzerinde açıklayacağım. Biraz önce yapmış olduğumuz egzersizi bu sefer atık su ve atıkta acaba ben gerçekten ne atıyorum, miktarın ötesinde ne kadar kirletiyorum sorusuna cevap arıyoruz. Bu detaylı bir deneysel karakterizasyonu gerektiriyor. Tekstil sektörüne aşina olduğunuz için hangi kirletici parametrelerin önemli olduğunu biliyorsunuz. Bunların boyutunu ortaya koymak için gerekiyor. Bir de belki de bu atık sulardan bazılarını geri kazanma imkanı ortaya çıkabilecek. Bunu belirlemek üzere yapıyorsunuz. Bu çok yaygın olarak kullandığımız bir örnek. Yani yanlış anlaşılmasın, sadece göstermek için böyle bir slide koydum. Bakın bu 16 tane farklı proses çalışan bir endüstride yaptığımız çalışmanın şematik gösterimi diyelim. Kimyasal oksijen ihtiyacı dediğimiz bir parametre. Bunun işte belirli bir değerinin olması lazım deşarj edilirken. Bu bir arıtma tesisine gidecek bu atık suyun içindeki ve yapılacak. Fakat buradaki çarpıcı şey şu. Siz eğer prosesin tamamına, kurumun tamamına bakmış olsaydınız, bütün prosesleri dikkate almış olsaydınız ve ondan sonra bir kirlenme profili çıkartıp bu tesisle ilgili bir arıtma şeması oluşturmaya çalışsaydınız şunu kaçıracaktınız. Bakın bu üniteler arasında, 16 tane ünite arasında en temel olarak kirletici olan 2 numaralı proses. Ne olduğunu bilmiyorum şu anda. Yani sorsanız onu bile söyleyemem, nereden kaynaklandığını. Ama 16 tane prosesin içinde ana yekünü bu 2 numaralı proses tutuyor. Dolayısıyla bu proses bazlı çalışmalar, toptan yapılacak olan çalışmaların daha anlamlı kılınması açısından çok önemli. Siz belki de diğerlerini, yani çok az miktarda kirletici verdiğiniz diğer prosesleri çok fazla dikkate almadan ekonomik ölçütleriniz içinde doğrudan ikinci prosese yöneleceksiniz. Sizler diye konuştuğum, sanki karşımda bu işi yapacak olan sanayiciler varmış gibi konuşuyorum, daha etkili olsun diye. Veyahut da siz bunları o sanayicilerden istersiniz umuduyla öyle konuşuyorum. Mesela böyle bir şeyden sonuç olarak elde edeceğiniz şey, 1 ton ürün başına 3 ton o söylediğim kimyasal oksijen ihtiyacı gibi bir kirletici ortaya çıkıyor. Kimyasal oksijen ihtiyacı dediğimiz şey organik maddenin bir ölçüsü. Bu üretim sürecinde böyle bir organik madde kullanılmış ve bunun da ölçüm yöntemi olan bir parametreyi bu şekilde değerlendirmiş oluyorsunuz. Dikkat ederseniz biraz önce 1 ton ürün için 40 metreküp su harcadığımızı bulmuştuk. İşte 35 metreküp atık su oluşturduğumuzu bulmuştuk. O 35 metreküp atık su içinde de 3 ton KO'yu olduğunu bulduk şimdi ton ürün başına düşünecek olursanız. İşte bunun dışında başka bir şeyimiz daha geliyor. Biliyorsunuz renk parametresi tekstilciler için çok önemli olmaya başladı. Yani tabirimi mazur görün, bütün herkes günah keçisi olarak tekstil endüstrisinin üzerine yüklenmiş vaziyette. Çok su kullanıyorsunuz, çok atık üretiyorsunuz, işte çok renkli atıyorsunuz. Onun için bunların çok detaylı olarak yapılıp ortaya konması lazım. Her alt kategori, tekstil endüstrisinin her alt kategorisinin durumu böyle değil. Farklı farklı kirleticiler ve farklı farklı su kullanımları ve atık su oluşumları söz konusu. Dolayısıyla bunların detaylı çalışmalarla ortaya konmasında yarar var. Bu da renkle ilgili bir örnek olsun diye gösterdim. Yakın bir gelecekte bütün mevzuatlarda, bizde biliyorsunuz Türkiye'de de konuyor ama uluslararası mevzuatta zaten sizden, tekstilcilerden böyle bir şey istenecek. Hem platin kobalt cinsinden hem de 3 tane farklı dalga boyu üzerinden istenecek. Türkiye'de platin kobalt bir ara kondu ve bu çok biliyorsunuz uygulamada zorluklara neden oldu. Çünkü konmuş olan standart miktarı 3 aşağı 5 yukarı ıhlamur rengine karşı geliyordu. Dolayısıyla bir denim prosesi hiçbir zaman için bu renk parametresine takılmadı. O yüzden bu yanlıştan dönüldü. Şimdi dalga boyları üzerinden bu iş yapılıyor. Biraz detay ama eskiden bu geldi, neden gittiğinin cevabı bu. En önemli şey, yani bu kadar yıllık meslek hayatımda diyeyim, en zorlandığım konulardan bir tanesi müessese körlüğü. Bütün sanayicimiz her şeyi çok iyi yaptığını, çalışanlarının bu işi zaten ortaya koyduğundan bahsediyor ve bir üçüncü göze ihtiyaç duymuyor. Veyahut da o üçüncü gözü sanayi içine çekmek istemiyor. Ancak siz hasta olduğunuzda, kendinizi kötü hissettiğinizde doktora gidip analiz yaptırıyorsunuz, değil mi? Yani hepimiz böyle yapıyoruz. Aynı şey sanayiciden de istenmeli. Daha doğrusu sanayici de böyle bir şey yapmalı. Bu insan hatası ve kurumsal körlük bizim başımıza büyük dertler açacak. Yani her sektörde aynı şeyle karşılaşıyoruz. En azından bu kurumsal körlüğü engelleyecek bir sistem kurulması açısından bu bilgilerin mutlaka oluşturulmasında yarar var. Kaynak, enerji ve atık ilişkisi, biraz önce bahsettik. Bu ilişkinin kurulması açısından çok önemli bunlar ve muhtemel iyileştirme önerilerine yol gösteriyor. Çünkü neyin ne olduğunu bilmeden hangi muhtemel iyileştirme önerilerinden bahsedeceğiz. Bu iyileştirme önerileri bizi tasarruf tedbirlerinin tanımlanmasına götürüyor. Mevzuatla uyumlu yeni bir çevre yönetim planı veya tesis içinde bir çevrem eylem planının oluşturulmasına neden oluyor. Zaten bunların hepsi sürdürülebilir çevresel yönetimin bir parçası. Başka ne işe yarar bu bilgiler? İşte atık akımlarını tespit ettik. Kaynak olarak, yani atık olarak değil de geri kazanabileceğimiz, gerçekten kullanabileceğimiz kaynakların tespitini bize sağlıyor. Tüm kaçakları gösteriyor. %40-50 tasarruf sağlıyor. Yani daha tesisin üretim aşamalarından bu işi yapabilirsek %40-50 tasarruf sağlıyor işletme giderlerinde. Enerji verimli, işletme maliyeti optimize edilmiş, hedefe yönelik en uygun teknolojik yaklaşımların doğru düzgün deneysel sonuçlarla elde edilmesine yarıyor. Bir başka husus daha var, o da şu: sanayicimiz biliyorsunuz uluslararası finans kuruluşlarından kredi alıyor. Bu kredilendirme süreçleri içinde bunlardan bir tanesi de ekvator prensipleri. Zannediyorum öğleden sonra veya akşamüstüne doğru bu maddi destekler konuşulacak. Muhtemelen orada da geçecektir. Yani uluslararası kuruluşlar böyle bir şeyin zaten yapılmasını zorunlu koşuyorlar. En önemli şey profesör de bahsetti. Karbon envanteri, yani karbon ayak izinin azaltılması. Şimdi karbon ayak izi bir şeyin sonucu. Bu doğrudan enerji kullanımının bir sonucu ya da karbondioksit veya buna karbondioksit eşdeğeri bir gaz üretmiyorsanız doğrudan enerji kullanımının bir sonucu. Enerjiyi nerede kullanıyorsunuz? Yani suyu bile enerjiyle getiriyorsunuz. Belki suyu sistemde öyle hazırlıyorsunuz. Bir de ilave olarak proseste kullanıyorsunuz. Dolayısıyla su kullanımının azaltılması aynı zamanda enerjinin kullanımı da azaltacağı için karbon salınımlarında önemli bir katkı sağlayacak. Proses içinde enerji kaçaklarınızı dengeleyebilirseniz veyahut onlarla ilgili iyileştirme yapabilirseniz gene aynı şeyler olacak. Dolayısıyla enerji yönetimi araçları, hedefleri ve programlarının saptanmasında bunlar çok büyük paralar kazandıracak diyeyim bir enerji yönetim sistemiyle birlikte. Şimdi sizden beklenenler ne? Yani gerçekten... Esas konuya geldik. Bir giriş bilgi verdik. Şimdi neler oluyor, neler bekleniyor sizden? Şimdi ihracatçı aramızda da konuştuk. Biz savaşçıyız dediler. Evet, ihracatçı demek gerçekten savaşçı demek. Şimdi bugüne kadarki savaş iyi bir fiyat ve güzel bir ürün ikilisi üzerineydi. Şimdi buna üçüncü bir komponent, bir bileşen eklendi. O da çevresel etkiler. Artık yaptığınız ihracatta sadece fiyatınız değil, ürün kaliteniz değil, bununla birlikte çevresel etkiler de soruluyor. Dolayısıyla 3 sac ayaklı bir problemle karşı karşıyayız. Hem fiyatımız iyi olacak, hem ürünümüzün kalitesi iyi olacak, hem de çevresel etkileri minimize etmiş olacağız. Bakmış olacağız daha doğrusu ve bunları da minimize edeceğiz. Şimdi özellikle Avrupa kıtası ihracatlarında bu rekabetçi ortam daha da artıyor. Neden derseniz Avrupa Birliği yeni çıkarttığı işte bir sürü yönetmelik ve mutabakatlarla 2050 yılı itibariyle bir döngüsel ekonomiye geçiş hedefi koydu. Bu hedef karbon nötr, çevresel olarak sürdürülebilirlik, toksin free ve tam döngüsel bir ekonomiyi hedefliyor. 2050 yılında net sera gazı emisyonlarını sıfırlamak istiyorlar. Şimdi net sera gazı emisyonlarını sıfırlamak demek gaz emisyonunu sıfırlamak anlamına gelmiyor. Onu dengelemek demek. Dolayısıyla öyle önlemler alınacak ki bu balans, bu denge sonuç olarak bir sıfır verecek. 2030'a kadar da 1990'a kıyasla %55 bu sera gazı emisyonlarının azaltılması hedefleniyor. Şimdi tabii burada çok önemli bir husus var. O da şu, sınırda karbon düzenlemesi uygulamaları da 2023 yılında gelmesi bekleniyor Avrupa Birliği'nde. Yani artık eskisi gibi bizim ülkemizde değil de işte komşuda bunu yaptırdık. Ürünümüzün karbon emisyonunu orada verdik, ortadan kalkıyor. Bu doğrudan denetlenecek bir husus olarak önümüze geliyor. Dolayısıyla bu karbon vergilerinden, ilave gelecek olan bu karbon vergilerinden kaçınmak için mutlaka nihai ihracatçılarımızın da önceki kademelerde, zincirin diğer halkalarında da bu işi çok sıkı takip etmesi gerekiyor. Hocam son slaydım. Ben vaktimi geçmişim. Hemen toparlıyorum. İlk yapılacak iş. İlk yapılacak iş, mevcut durum tespit edilecek. Nerede duruyoruzun cevabı verilecek. Çevresel ayak izleri proses bazlı, kurum bazlı her şekilde bilinecek. Yani bunun başka çaresi yok. İnternette görmüş olduğunuz, yani bütün sizin tedarikçilerinizden demek herhalde yanlış olmaz benim için. birebir bunu istemek zorundasınız. İşte internette yazanların, orada söylenenlerin güvenilmemesi gerektiğinde biraz önce konuşmacımız bahsetmişti. Bu döngüsel ekonomi stratejisinde inovatif yaklaşımlarla artık su miktarını, enerji miktarını, geri kazanım uygulamalarını azaltmak, geri kazanım uygulamalarını hızlandırmak, kaynak atık geri kazanımına birazcık eğilmek gibi inovatif yaklaşımlar yapmamız lazım. En önemli şey talepkar olacaksınız. Talepkar olmalı, sorumluluk paylaşılmalı. Nihai ürünü oluşturan tüm halkalar bir önceki halkadan çevre önlemlerini talep etmeli ve spesifik o kurumdan bunları talep etmeli. Bu zincir geriye doğru giderse o zaman ihracatın bütün bu handikapları diyeyim pamuk ipliği gibi hemen çözülebilir. Sanayi kuruluşları inovasyonla desteklenmeli. Yani bunu bütün toplantılarımızın her yerinde söylemekle yükümlüyüz. Her şeyi sanayi değil ama birazcık da inovasyon için sanayi kuruluşlarına destek verilmesi gerekiyor. Önceden hazırlıklı olmalı. Bakın sizin bu işin içinde olan kurum kuruluşlar olarak sezgileriniz çok kuvvetli. Proaktif olmalı. Sezgilerinizi kullanıp ne tip mevzuat değişiklikleri geleceğine bağlı olarak kendinizi konumlandırmanız gerekiyor. Uzun ömürlü, kolay, geri dönüştürülebilen ve yeniden kullanılabilen eko dizaynlara geçilmeli ve temiz üretime geçilmeli. Yani bunlar burada yazıyor. Şimdi bütün bunlar yapıldığı zaman bu hani sıfır atık diyoruz ya, sıfır atık, karbon nötr kavramlarına bir yolculuk başlatmış oluyoruz. Yani bu yolculuğu tamamlamış değil, ancak başlatmış ve bu yolda işte ilerleyebiliyor oluyoruz. Bunlar olmazsa olmazlarımız mutlaka ve mutlaka tüm sektörlerde. Hani tekstil endüstrisi çok gözde, çok revaçta, göz bebeğimiz. Yani ülke bütün her şeyi sizinle yapıyor diyeceğim. O yüzden bunları bütün zincir içinde mutlaka yapılması ve istenmesi gerekiyor diyorum ve ben buyum. E-mail adresim burada. Herhangi bir sorunuz olursa elimin erdiği, dilimin döndüğünce cevaplamaya gayret ederim, çalışırım. Zaten bütün işim Ar-Ge yapmak. Yani bu konuda herhangi bir şeyiniz olursa İstanbul Teknik Üniversitesi, ben, ekibim, bütün dostlarım hep birlikte güzel şeyler yaparız diye düşünüyorum. Teşekkür ederim.
Hocam çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Korktuğum bir şey söylemediniz, o çok iyi oldu. Tekstil sektöründe biz malzemeye tutum, renk ve istenen özellikleri kazandırma açısından dönüp baktığımızda terbiye diye belirttiğimiz bir alan var, bir dağ var. İnşallah ona gerek yok demediniz, çok iyi oldu. Çünkü biz geçmişte biraz da cahilce yaklaşımda ya biz bütün bu özellikleri lifi imal ederken içine monte etsek de sonra sulu mulu işleri hiç kullanmasak olmaz mı diye düşünmüştük. Ama maalesef olmuyor ama gösterdiğiniz yöntemlerle bunu minimize etmek ve bundan sonra...
Prosesinizi bozmadan proseste ne yapılacağını izah etmeye çalıştım. Ben proses mühendisi değilim. Proses mühendisi arkadaşlarımız belki üretim zincirinde daha farklı şeyler önerebilirler. O kimyasalın yerine bu kimyasalın kullanılması gibi. Zaten Zero Discharge Hazardous Chemicals da onu söylüyor.
Mümkünse hiç kullanmadan çok daha iyi tabii ki. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz kapsamlı sunumunuz için. Efendim bu şekilde bu oturumun sonuna gelmiş oluyoruz. Şimdi bir ara vereceğiz, tekrar devam edeceğiz. Şimdi bana diyeceksiniz ki ya bu konuşmacıları da hiç fazla sıkıntıya sokmadın, hiç müdahale etmedin. Arada sesimi kestiler, onun için müdahale edemedim. Onun dışında da o kadar güzel anlatıyorlardı ki doğrusu bir akademisyen olarak da o heyecanı kesmek istemedim. Ama isterseniz aradan birazcık kesiverelim. 20 dakikalık bir aramız var, onu 15 dakikayla sınırlarsak çok memnun olurum. Tekrar katılımınız için ben oturumu kapatıyorum. Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Buyurun.